If you ever watched Schlocky's 70s sci-fi show, The $6 Million Man, you'll probably remember the opening sequence, during which a faceless narrator describes building a man who is better than he was before, better, stronger and faster. With the iPhone XS and XS Max, Apple's engineers achieved that type of incredible transformation. They fabricated phones that look like normal, and just like last year's iPhone X. But just like the shadowy geniuses who built the bionic man, Apple indeed made the iPhone X better, stronger and faster, thanks in large part to the A12 bionic chip that powers the new phone's most advanced functions. Just like Colonel Steve Austin, the ace astronaut who got $6 million worth of bionic implants after a devastating crash, the iPhone X received massive internal upgrades to morph into the iPhone XS and XS Max. While it looks the same as the old, excellent device, it's actually far more fantastic and futuristic. It's been a year since Apple introduced us to the iPhone X, its vision for the future of the smartphone, and a lot has changed in that time. Edge-to-edge screens with notches have become the norm, facial recognition tech flourishes inside almost every flagship phone, buttons are slowly but surely disappearing, and $1,000 price tags no longer seem to be unbelievable. Fortunately for iPhone fans and for Apple, the iPhone X was a massive success. It outsold the iPhone 8 and every other model in the lineup quarter after quarter. This year, Apple ditched its more traditional smartphone designs entirely for 3 handsets that all follow the iPhone X into the future. The most impressive are the 5.8-inch iPhone XS and the 6.5-inch iPhone XS Max. They build upon the foundations laid last year with the very best Apple has to offer in displays, chips, cameras and more. But are they worth their premium price tags? Apple didn't make any dramatic changes in the iPhone's design this year. The iPhone XS looks almost exactly like the iPhone X, and the iPhone XS Max is simply a larger version. They have the same glass back, the same stainless steel edges, and the same glorious screen. 2 out of 3 colours are the same, space grey and silver, but the 2018 models come in an iridescent gold that looks stupendous. As with the silver and space grey models, the colour of the glass back morphs subtly as you change your viewing angle. In this case, it goes from a shiny gold to a subtle ivory colour. The darker stainless steel band looks brassy and bold. As with last year's models, the 2018 iPhones are fingerprint magnets. But the bottom line is, you should probably put these pricey devices in a protective case pronto. The smaller iPhone XS model has almost exactly the same dimensions as its predecessor, the iPhone X. However, it is ever so slightly heavier at 6.24 ounces versus 6.14 ounces for the iPhone X. The XS Max measures 6.2 inches tall by 3 inches wide and the same 0.3 inches thick, and it weighs in at 7.3 ounces. But don't let the familiar design fool you. Just as the Bionic Man's ordinary looking body concealed superhuman powers, the iPhone XS and XS Max pack improvements where it counts. They're not exactly the same as last year's models either. There are some subtle tweaks to the new iPhone's bodies that you may not even notice at first glance. Additional antenna bars added to improve signal and connectivity show up on the top and bottom edges of the new devices. They're coloured to match the stainless steel frame of the iPhone XS and XS Max, so they don't stick out like a sore thumb. However, Apple made a small but obvious alteration to accommodate one of them. On the iPhone X, both the microphone and speaker grills on either side of the lightning port had 6 holes. On the iPhone XS, one side had 6 holes while the other has 3. This is a strange move for Apple, which is famous for its fussy attention to detail. Cupertino's designers typically like their devices to be as symmetrical as possible. The change isn't exactly awful, and it certainly won't bother most users, although it might cause some iPhone X cases not to work so well with the iPhone XS. Still, it makes you wonder why Apple couldn't have placed that additional antenna band somewhere else. Also, despite having the same dimensions as the iPhone X, the camera hump on the iPhone XS is ever so slightly larger this time around. Your eyes won't notice the difference, but you may find that tight-fitting iPhone X cases don't quite fit the new model around the camera. One change we certainly have no gripes about is the improved dust and water resistance. The iPhone XS and XS Max are rated IP68 under the IEC standard, which means they can be submerged in up to 2 meters of water for up to 30 minutes. In comparison, the iPhone X and previous models are rated IP67, which covers a maximum depth of only 1 meter for 30 minutes. Apple also claims that the iPhone XS and XS Max pack the strongest glass ever used in a smartphone. Similar claims were made about the iPhone X last year, which used glass reinforced with steel. Fans quickly learned that although it might be stronger, it was still glass and would still break. We've managed to keep all our iPhone XS models in one piece so far, so for now it's hard to say if it's really more robust than last year's design. But anything Apple can do to make its handsets tougher is a step in the right direction. Holding that glass together is a stainless steel frame that is absolutely stunning. It's highly polished and it makes the iPhone feel like a truly premium device, but you will need to protect it. Let's not beat around the bush. The Super Retina display on both the iPhone XS models is the best iPhone display Apple has ever made. It was just as good on last year's iPhone X though. Apple didn't make any significant improvements. Not that improvements were necessary. Those Super Retina displays use OLED technology for exceptional colour accuracy and true blacks, with a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio. The HDR10 compatible screen boasts the highest pixel density of any Apple device. Perhaps most importantly for everyday use, it's beautifully bright. That means you'll have no problem using it outdoors on a sunny day. The XS Max's massive screen is totally impressive. It offers more space for web pages, photos, movies and games than any other iPhone before it. It comes with 3D touch and True Tone baked in, and yes, the notch is still there. But that's not a bad thing. By using the notch and eliminating those bezels almost entirely, Apple made a 6.5-inch display feel compact in the iPhone XS Max. You will certainly notice the additional girth if you're upgrading from an iPhone X or a 4.7-inch iPhone, but it's manageable. If you're upgrading from a 5.5-inch plus size iPhone, you will hardly notice it at all. I've been using the iPhone X for the past year and I've grown to love that form factor. It fits comfortably in my jeans pocket and never feels unwieldy, even in my tiny Trumpian hands. For me, the iPhone XS Max felt uncomfortably large, just the way my iPhone 6 Plus did way back when. But when I sized down for the iPhone X, I came to appreciate once again the portability that a smaller phone offers. I'm in the minority here though. For the rest of the Cultamax staffers who tested it, the iPhone XS Max never felt too big. In fact, that gigantic, gorgeous screen proves undeniably alluring even to me. The raw specs don't even truly convey how much larger the iPhone XS Max's screen is. It's a truly noticeable difference, and it's enough to make me want to start doing finger stretching exercises. The supersized display makes this the best iPhone ever for accessing the web, watching video or playing games. It might even replace your iPad mini. Plus, the screen comes in at 2436 by 1125 pixels, resulting in 458 pixels per inch. This extremely high resolution is further enhanced by that OLED display, which looks beautiful under any lighting condition, even direct sunlight. Quite incredibly, Apple squeezed the 6.5-inch screen into a device that's only slightly bigger than an iPhone 8 Plus. Samsung's new Galaxy Note 9, despite having a smaller 6.4-inch display, is a lot bigger than the XS Max as a result of avoiding a notch and using narrow bezels above and below the display. Obviously, you get more screen space on the XS Max, but in some cases, like on the home screen and in the control center, that just means everything looks bigger. You won't necessarily see more stuff. It would have been great if Apple took advantage of the XS Max's bigger screen by giving us some additional features, like picture-in-picture so we could watch videos while browsing the web, or even split view so we could see two apps simultaneously. This functionality has been on Android for years and it works well on large screens. Sadly, Apple didn't deliver those features, at least not yet. While the iPhone XS is noticeably large, the stealth upgrade in both this year's iPhones is stellar performance. The Bionic Man got his superhuman strength from his cyborg legs and arm. For the iPhone XS and XS Max, the increased brawn comes from a bionic brain. Both iPhone XS and XS Max, and the upcoming iPhone XR, are powered by Apple's brand new A12 Bionic chip. It's the first mobile chip using a cutting-edge 7nm manufacturing process, and it's significantly better in every way. Like the A11 Bionic, the chip features 2 performance cores for heavy tasks, and 4 efficiency cores for everyday tasks. Apple says it boosts processing by 15% and graphics by 50%, while slashing power consumption by up to 50%. Perhaps the most impressive thing about the A12 Bionic chip is its new neural engine, which is dedicated to machine learning for things like augmented reality and Face ID. It's dramatically faster than last year's A11, with the ability to process a staggering 5 trillion operations per second. Thanks to that new neural engine, you may notice that Face ID facial recognition is slightly quicker. Face ID feels plenty fast already, but this is a slippery feature. Because it adapts to your face over time, it's hard to say exactly how it will work in say a week or two. Over the past 11 months, my iPhone X didn't really unlock that well when I grabbed it first thing in the morning. Maybe that's because of bedhead, pillow face, or the 6 AM darkness. The iPhone XS and XS Max also come with 4GB of RAM, 1GB more than the iPhone X. The extra memory comes in handy when multitasking and switching between a bunch of open tabs in Safari. We ran Primate Labs Geekbench 4 on our test iPhone XS Max and got a multi-core score of 11,555. When we put an iPhone X running iOS 12 through the same test, it scored 10,106. In short, Apple's newest shows a 14% improvement. Apple promised the processor cores in the new A12 bionic chip would be up to 15% faster, and it delivered. We also ran Geekbench 4's compute test on both devices. The iPhone XS Max scored 21,895, while the iPhone X scored 15,782. That's a 39% increase, which can be credited to improved GPU in the A12 Bionic. There's more to speed than just the CPU though. Improvement to the iPhone XS series wireless hardware also speeds up 4G LTE networking. SpeedSmart, the maker of the speed test app, showed how dramatic the difference can be. It found that the iPhone XS could get a download speed as high as 73 megabytes per second, while the iPhone X topped out at 28 megabytes per second. Those tests were clearly done under excellent networking conditions though. Obviously, your mileage will vary according to your carrier and location. It all adds up to an iPhone that feels faster than ever. The iPhone XS Max makes every single task that much more fast and fluid. Even better, that feeling will only grow as developers roll out apps and games that take full advantage of the spanking new A12 Bionic chip. The larger form factor on the XS Max allowed Apple to install a larger battery. A recent leak revealed that the actual capacity of the cell is 3,174 mAh. According to Apple, it will last around 1.5 hours longer than the iPhone X. The iPhone XS has a 2,658 mAh battery, which is actually smaller than the iPhone X's battery, and yet it should last around 30 minutes longer. That's mostly thanks to the more efficient A12 chip. In our experience, Apple's promises about battery life are accurate, as long as the device is used indoors. We did an outdoor torture test on the iPhone XS Max, with the screen turned all the way to 100% and streaming video the entire time. The device lasted 8 hours and 22 minutes, which we think is the shortest time between charges anyone can expect from this model. Keep the screen at something lower and it'll last much longer. This year's iPhone lineup also offers slightly faster wireless charging that you can enjoy if you own a wireless charging mat that can deliver more power. It's not a huge increase, so don't expect anything spectacular, but any improvement to charging speeds is welcome. The fastest way to charge the iPhone XS and XS Max is still by using a lightning cable. Just like last year's devices, the new iPhones offer fast charging capabilities that will give you a 50% charge in around 30 minutes. This is ideal if you have to leave the house at the end of the day and you need a quick top up. For the first time, both of Apple's flagship handsets pack exactly the same cameras. You can think of these as the Bionic Man's outrageously powerful left eye. In both models, you get a 7 megapixel camera with an f2.2 aperture on the front for selfies and FaceTime calls, and two 12 megapixel sensors with an f1.8 and f2.4 apertures on the back for fancier photos and 4K videos. On paper, they sound just like the cameras packed into the iPhone X, but that's not the case. These are Apple's best iPhone cameras yet. Thanks to twice as many focus pixels, they deliver more detail in low light, while faster sensors allow for improved highlights and shadows. They also take advantage of the neural engine, for the first time to deliver face detection, great bokeh, which you can adjust after capturing your shot, and an incredible new feature called Smart HDR. Smart HDR dramatically improves your photos by combining multiple images into one. When you tap the shutter button, the iPhone captures a series of images at different exposures. It then analyzes those images, picks out the best bits, and merges them into the perfect photo, in a split second. Other smartphones like Google's Pixel 2 do something similar. However, the iPhone XS and XS Max are unique in that they don't just capture underexposed frames, but also overexposed frames. This can provide even greater dynamic range. It might sound like a trivial improvement, but it's not. All of that awesomeness requires a lot of computing, and no other company has been able to achieve this before. Not even DSLR cameras that cost 3 times as much as the iPhone XS Max have a feature comparable to Smart HDR. It's a testament to the A12 chip and its improved neural engine, and to Apple's camera engineers. Photos taken with the iPhone XS camera just look like real images captured using expensive DSLR cameras. If you're upgrading from an iPhone 7 or older, you might have been happy with your previous camera, but you'll be shocked and amazed by the cameras in the iPhone XS. The fancy portrait mode features Apple showcased during its recent iPhone event showed off the device's startling post-shot capabilities. You can tweak the bokeh seamlessly with a slider, adjusting the background's fuzziness to add a 3D pop to your subject. Apple said these phones mark a new era of photography, and that seems legit. The combination of advanced hardware and powerful software makes these cameras unparalleled. The new camera system works well even in low light, and consistently captured images that blew us away. The iPhone XS photos look sharper and more detailed than ever, with a greater depth of colour. It's simply astonishing that you can capture such beautiful images with a phone that slides easily into your pocket. Before the iPhone XS and XS Max came out, we here at Cult of Mac spent plenty of time debating if the upgrade would be worth it. Like the iPhone X, these devices start at $999 and go up rapidly from there. The spec'd out iPhone XS Max with 516GB of storage costs a wallet-busting $1,449. That's no $6 million, but it's still a wad of dough, even for Silicon Valley spendthrifts. It's easy to squint at the familiar form factor and shrug off the iPhone XS and XS Max as unnecessary upgrades. And maybe it's true that you don't need to upgrade from an iPhone X. However, like the Bionic Man, these phones prove deceptive. Apple indeed built them to be better, stronger, faster, and, in the case of the iPhone XS Max, bigger. With surprisingly strong advances, and a bionic brain that will only prove more important in coming months, these phones are the best argument yet for the iPhone upgrade program. For me, the iPhone is the single most important device in my life. With its increased speed and smarts, the iPhone XS makes all the little everyday tasks that much faster and easier. I'm addicted to speed, and if Apple can make each year's new iPhones this much better, I'll be hooked for life. You don't need a bionic eye to see that these are the phones of the future. Until at least 2019.